Blacula celebrates its 50th anniversary and is a bit controversial for being part of the blaxploitation craze. Blaxploitation is a subgenre of exploitation movie that had black actors in lead roles and was aimed at a black audience. Some famous examples of this would be Superfly, Shaft, Coffee, and Blacula, which is not only a blaxploitation movie, it is a blaxploitation horror movie. We open in Transylvania, 1780, as Prince Mamuwalde and his wife, Luva, meet with Count Dracula and discuss his involvement with slave trading. Mamuwalde asks him to reconsider, but not only does Dracula refuse, he makes unsavory comments about race. The two try to leave, but Dracula's men stop them, leading to a fight that ends with Dracula biting Mamuwalde, turning him into a vampire, and locking him in a coffin deep in his dungeon. After some cool animated opening titles, we're in Los Angeles, 1972, where two interior decorators find Mamuwalde's coffin. When one of them gets cut, the smell of blood is all it takes to wake him up and attack them. He sees a woman named Tina Williams who strongly resembles Luva and initiates a friendly relationship with her. Meanwhile, a pathologist named Dr. Gordon Thomas begins to notice the similarities between recent deaths, many victims having bite marks on their necks and being drained of blood. He also happens to be dating Tina's sister and grows suspicious of Mamuwalde. Like a lot of blaxploitation movies, the budget was very low, and a lot of the cast and crew came from television backgrounds. The movie was produced by Samuel Z. Arkoff, who is known for producing cheap B-movie schlock, and it was director William Kane's first feature film. William Marshall played Prince Mamuwalde. Marshall was a seasoned theater actor and opera singer and brings a presence to the role, not just by the sound of his voice, but by the way he carries himself and speaks to everybody. Originally, the movie's main character was a man named Andrew Brown, but when Marshall signed on, he wasn't too happy with the character, so he created the character of Mamuwalde, giving him more dignity and a richer backstory. You can see this character side by side with Christopher Lee and Vincent Price. The opening scene with Dracula establishes him as a racist, the way he defends slavery and how he treats Luva. He basically tells Mamuwalde, hey, your wife's hot. You should take that as a compliment that I, a white man, would find her attractive. Which is a super fucked up thing to say. And when he bites him and turns him into a vampire, he gives him one final insult by renaming him Blacula, which, by the way, is the only time that name is ever mentioned in the movie. The movie is more socially conscious than most blaxploitation movies, and I wanted to talk about that, take a stance on racism. Dr. Thomas works with the police, but doesn't hesitate to accuse them of racism when he sees it. Despite this, there are still some offensive stereotypes in the movie. Racial slurs and homophobic slurs. The two characters who find Mamuwalde are gay and are referred to by offensive names by the characters. And unfortunately, that's just how people talked back then. And that was the problem with a lot of blaxploitation movies. Some people saw them as having a negative impact by enforcing these types of stereotypes. But there were also some people who enjoyed the movie and gave them praise because they were giving black artists a platform and having them play the leads, whereas in most Hollywood productions, they would only be minor characters. These movies are outdated, and Blacula is no exception. It is a product of its time. But there are some good things about it. There's a lot of good social issues, great characters, great performances. The horror is really good. It's a really good vampire movie. The Count Dracula Society even called it the most terrifying film of the decade. There is one scene where one of Mamuwalde's victims, a taxi driver, wakes up and runs down a hallway to attack the morgue attendant. It's all done in slow motion, with her scream getting louder and louder. The growing relationship between Mamuwalde and Tina also brings an element of romance. When he reveals to her that he's a vampire, she's hesitant to believe him, but does have feelings for him, and ultimately stands by his side. Blacula is a mixed bag, but the pros do seem to outweigh the cons. Recently, MGM has announced a new movie with Deon Taylor attached to direct, and it would be interesting to see the movie's story and themes brought back in a much more contemporary and appropriate fashion. There was a sequel and other blaxploitation horror movies, but none of which held a candle to the original, Blacula, from 1972.